Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Welcome to the Richard Nixon Library in our beautiful city of Yorba Linda. My name is Tom Lindsay, and I'm a member of the Yorba Linda City Council. The pulpit from which I speak is arguably the most conservative square meter of ground I'm not done yet. In the most conservative building, in the most conservative city, within this state's most conservative county. How apropos it is for me to introduce tonight's host, an individual who may qualify as the most conservative man I know. Most importantly, he's a good father to 2 grown daughters. He and his wife Dana reside in Whittier, where he is an ordained minister. He received his bachelor's degree and MBA in finance from USC and owns his own CPA firm, IRS Problem Solvers, which allows him to engage every day in his passion, helping others work through their financial hardships. He's a member or an associate of too many conservative organizations to list, but they include the Republican National Committee, the LA Lincoln Club, the NRA, the Heritage Foundation, and many, many others. As if that wasn't enough, he puts his money where his mouth is, having run for political office and as a conservative, active political activist, highly respected by his peers for his integrity. He hosts Liberty Speaks, a conservative radio talk show every Saturday evening at 5 p.m. on 790 KABC radio. And of course, we are all educated and enjoy events such as this evening through the Liberatore lecture series hosted and arranged by this good man. One wonders if with his crazy schedule, he ever has date night with Dana. Do you? He says yes. It is my privilege to introduce our host and my friend, Mr. Phil Liberatore.
Thank you, Tom. Keep up the good work here in the great city of Yorba Linda. My beautiful wife, Dana. Every night is date night, just to let you know, but we do have some special dates together. We got one coming up. Her birthday is Sunday, the 13th, so I get a double whammy, 13th and the 14th, but I love it. We'll be married 29 years in June of this year, and we met on a blind date. So don't ever discount those blind dates for those of you out there single. But welcome to the Richard Nixon Library. We're so happy and honored to have you here tonight for the Liberatore Lecture Series. This is the second one in the series we're going to continue to have here. The first one was with Ann Coulter. And thank you for coming back tonight. We really appreciate you guys a lot. Tonight we have some great dear friends with us. Larry Elder. Great statesman. By the way, our show, Liberty Speaks, follows Larry on the Law on Saturdays. He's on from 3 to 5. And we're on from 5 to 6, so you got a whole 3 hours there of great conservative talk radio and help. And Sheriff Joe Arpaio, how about American Sheriff Joe? We were a little late tonight because he was on the street addressing some protesters out there. He'll talk, he'll engage with the guys out there. Hey, what's your problem? What's the deal? And he'll tell him what, like it is. I like Sheriff Joe. He tells it like it is. Yeah. And he's like, what more can you ask? But why are we doing this? My wife and I decided to do this. We ran for Congress last year. We barely lost in the 42nd district here. We kind of got a late start. We actually won on election day, I'm proud to say, but we lost by the absentee votes. But we're going to do it again. Don't worry, we're here to serve you. But let me tell you something. Why did we run to begin with? Well, just like you, we're sick and tired of what's going on out there. Our government officials, they're not representing us. They're representing themselves, lining their pockets. And I like what Sarah Palin said Friday night at the Reagan Ranch where we broadcasted live on Saturday night. She said the only thing the stimulus package did was to stimulate the Tea Party. But we started Liberty Speaks Radio, we started this lecture series, and I'm in the process of writing a book. I want my country back, and I think we're all feeling that way tonight. Ronald Reagan, the greatest president probably in our lifetime, we just celebrated his 100th birthday over the weekend. And remember what he said, freedom is no more than one generation away from distinction unless we continue to fight and protect it and hand it on to the next generation. We got to do that, folks. We've got to do it. And you know what really pushed me over the edge? Sorry about that. When I had clients, I have a client base of about 4,000 individuals, by the way, and about 500 corporations. I had clients coming in last year saying, Phil, how do I make less than $250,000? I said, what? What are you talking about? Oh yeah, the president said they're going to tax us, we're going to be rich, and we can't pay that kind of money. Man, it made me sick, folks, because I help people start, I had 100 clients start corporations last year, have helped hundreds over the years, and I help them live the American dream. And what we're doing, we're reversing the American dream, to think we can't do it anymore. And we've got to stop this madness. We got Obamacare, then we got to overturn, the Congress is overturning it, but we got to defund it. I don't know if you heard about this ObamaNet. Anybody heard about ObamaNet? He wants everybody that uses the internet to have a password so the government can have control over the internet. That's how they did it in Egypt, by the way. Yeah. Egypt killed the internet because there's only 4 companies that control it. And they pulled the switch just like that. We're not that far away from it, folks. We got to do something. We got to do it now. And we have to keep in mind, President Reagan said this, God bless him, we are one nation under God. And if we ever forget that, we'll be a nation under. And look at the great state of California. My parents moved here in the 50s and the 60s when it was a great state of golden opportunities. I'm calling it now the golden state of obstacles. It's the worst state in the union. They're driving businesses out of here by the droves. And guess what? We got a $26.4 billion deficit. And Governor Jerry Brown, 3rd time's a charm, right? Oh my goodness. I'm getting all heated up here. I'm not even the speaker. I gotta get out of here. Well, listen to this. We've got to do something about this. In June, he wants to put on the ballot to continue the increase in California income taxes over the next 5 years to the tune of $12 billion. We're saying, who in their right mind is going to vote for that? Only half of us pay taxes, folks. The other half saying, yeah, let's tax the other half. And guess what? If they don't get the increase in taxes, the government workers are going to get a cut in their pay. And they're part of this union. The pension problem in California is a real problem. So we've got to defeat this increase in taxes so the governor can make cuts where they really belong. But enough said there. Ronald Reagan also said you can't be for big government, big bureaucracy, and big taxes and still be for the little guy. And that's what we are right now, the little guy. But we're going to continue to fight back. Dana, do you want to say anything? Last quote from President Reagan, Governor Reagan, the great man Ronald Reagan. The California flag has the golden bear on it, not the cow that's to be milked. Let's not get milked, all right?
I rarely share the stage with Phil, and I know why now. I just wanted to take this opportunity to extend a warm welcome to all of you. We are so honored and delighted that you have joined us. Thank you for your indulgence that we started a little late. As a hostess, I'm very concerned about that. But we just had a little sheriff from Arizona here who caused a scene out there. So I'm sure you can all understand that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councilman Tom Lindsay, for your gracious being with us tonight and your gracious introduction. We are honored to have you here as well. Just before I introduce our wonderful Master of Ceremonies, I wanted to inform you about a wonderful event that's happening on April 16th with Pacific Justice Institute. We love the Pacific Justice Institute and we love to promote their wonderful causes. On April 2nd, they're having Dick Morris as a speaker at the Disneyland's Grand Californian Hotel. You can go to PacificInstituteJustice.com to learn more about that. So we wanted to tell you about that. Well, tonight, yes. Want to say something?
PJI.org.
Oh, thank you. I stand corrected. Tonight we have an amazing person as our wonderful Master of Ceremonies for this event. He is a New York Times best-selling author. He's a great commentator. He's a news analyst and a law professor. How do you like that all wrapped up into one? Isn't that amazing? He is sought after for his expertise on current events and cultural matters. He's appeared on The O'Reilly Factor, Weekend Live with Tony Snow, CNN's People in the News, Fox and Friends, ABC's Politically Incorrect, and numerous other television programs. He's also a frequent guest on many radio shows, including Michael Savage, Sean Hannity, Dennis Prager, Michael Reagan, George Putman, and the list goes on. In addition to that, he hosts his own daily radio program on a nationally syndicated network. He is a pundit for Newsmax.com and the author of the popular weekly column, The Left Coast Report. He is also a friend of ours, and he's been a frequent guest on our radio show, Liberty Speaks. Would you join me in a great round of applause for James Hirsen?
Hello, everybody, and yeah, one more round of applause for the Liberatores for Phil and Dana. She mentioned that I write for Newsmax, and one of the things I've done over the years is kind of take a look at some of the stories that maybe we haven't heard about. But before I do that, I can't help but be struck by this amazing group of people that are going to speak here. You know, there's wisdom in the air when you have the sage from South Central. Let's hear it. And then, you know, my mother said, respect your elder. And we have Sheriff Arpaio, who's doing the work that the federal government is supposed to do. You probably remember in the State of the Disunion speech how the Republicans and Democrats in this civil society that we now live in post-Tucson sat next to each other, had date night. And so in that spirit, we were asked to have Sheriff Dupnik sit next to Sheriff Arpaio, but we said no! And they were going to make all of you move over so we could bring in some members of Acorn. But I was wondering, you know, I was on CBS Radio yesterday doing a very important legal analysis of the Lindsay Lohan case. And, hey, it's my job. And I thought to myself, you know what, Sheriff Joe is a true lawman, not like Sheriff Dupnik. And Sheriff Joe has those tough, kind of law enforcement. What if Sheriff Joe was in charge of Hollywood? Okay, Charlie Sheen, Lindsay Lohan in a tent city. How about it? In pink pajamas, eating bologna sandwiches. let Angelina Jolie adopt one of them. By the way, this is very important for young people. It came out, you know, Charlie Sheen's been on these benders. He's the highest paid actor in television, has the most popular show on CBS. And he's been involved with, you know, drugs and drinks and porn stars on a nightly basis. And now it came out that he has a challenge in his mouth. He has a challenge with his dentistry, and he has to wear a porcelain appliance when he's in public, and they might change the name of the show to 2.5 Teeth. And it's true. And, you know, it's just speaking of teeth. Just for, if I digress for a moment, a true lawsuit happened in Washington, D.C. A member of Congress, the Ohio congressman, one of your favorites, Dennis Kucinich, filed a lawsuit based on injuries to his teeth from an olive pit in a sandwich. Yeah, the toothache was so bad, he had to miss the Star Trek convention. And today, one more piece of news. Michelle Obama announced, this is true now, I'm going to tell you, these are all true stories. Michelle Obama announced that her husband, you know him, President Obama, has quit smoking. Yeah, I know, you probably don't believe it, but the rest of the story is every time he gets the urge for a cigarette, he just stops, and instead of taking the smoke, he redistributes wealth. All of our rights and freedoms that we celebrate, there's a source for those rights and freedoms, and we have to acknowledge that source. So we have with us Pastor Jim Doman, who has pastored the Rose Drive Friends Church for 6 years. He is now working with pastors at the California Family Council, supporting respect for life, marriage, and religious liberty. So I would like to ask a great combination, Pastor Jim Doman, to have our invocation. Pastor?
What a great evening. Would you join me as I pray? Heavenly Father, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Lord, I'd like to thank you. Thank you for our blessings. We are a grateful people and recognize that anything truthful comes from you. Thank you for truth. Thank you for Jesus, the truth that sets us free. Thank you for leaders and people of influence who stand for truth, respect law, and abide by it. Lord, thank you for Phil Liberatore, his passion and vision to educate and lead Californians back to truth. Lord, thank you for Larry Elder's conservative views and how he influences people through his radio show and other venues. And God, thank you for Sheriff Joe, his sacrifice to uphold law, even if it's not popular in the media. Guide him and use him to accomplish your purposes. Lord, I thank you for this evening. Guide our speakers, and I ask that your will be done in this state, and in this country, and in our city. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. And we have a great privilege tonight to lead our Pledge of Allegiance. We have Rachel, a 5th grader, Rachel Hartunian, from St. Joseph's School in Placentia. And she is a Girl Scout. She plays the flute. She plays volleyball. She's on the soccer team. And she lives with her loving mom and dad, Ray and Gladys Hartunian. Come on up, Rachel.
Please stand and face the flag and put your right hand over your heart for the pledge. Ready? Begin. You may be seated.
A big hand for Rachel. Let me tell you, that takes guts, and she did it beautifully. You know, I'm originally from Chicago, and you know, it used to be a good city, but we just found out that the Illinois appellate courts, the Supreme Court of Illinois, put Rahm Emanuel's name back on the ballot after controversy about whether he lived in Chicago. So now we know Illinois, Chicago law is clear. If you don't live in the city, you can run, and if you live in the graveyard, you can vote. Now, someone who didn't get graveyard votes is Sherry Friedrich, who has been a CPA for over 25 years. She was the treasurer for the city of Huntington Beach and has been thankfully elected as Orange County treasurer, a conservative. She managed a come-from-behind victory, and she's managing a very, very difficult fiscal situation. I talked to her before this proceeding began. She has exactly the right ideas. Cut expenses. What a great idea. Please come up, Sherry Friedrich, and Sherry will be introducing our students.
Thank you, James. I'm honored tonight to introduce someone who shines the light of reasoned analysis on many of the myths and hypocrisies apparent in our system of government, our society, and the media itself. As a CPA, I can truly appreciate someone who asks why and was not afraid to dig into the details. Larry was the son of a janitor and was born and raised in South Central LA. He attended Brown University, receiving a BA in political science in 1974, and attended the University of Michigan School of Law, graduating in 1977. He practiced litigation, but then found his true calling when he began hosting topic-oriented TV shows on PBS and on the local Fox affiliate in Cleveland. Larry then hosted for 15 years the longest running drive talk radio show for KABC, and has appeared on numerous top-rated shows, including Hannity and Combs, The O'Reilly Factor, Larry King Live, Hard Copy, CNN, and many, many others. He has also hosted his own TV show, Moral Court, and received an Emmy for Best News Special, in addition to many other awards of excellence in the broadcasting field. He is a best-selling author with his newest book recently out entitled, What's Race Got to Do with It? A must-read book, and he currently writes a nationally syndicated newspaper column. Larry recently returned to KABC 790 AM with his new show, Larry on the Law, just before Phil. The sage from South Central, as he is known to his listeners, is a blend of fiscal conservative and social liberal with attitude. His limited government, personal responsibility views have made him one of the most in-demand personalities in the country. Please put your hands together for our next speaker, the multimedia heavyweight, Larry Elder.
fantastic evening. Phil told me, Larry, I don't want you to say anything divisive. I don't want you to say anything offensive. I don't want you to say anything profane. So that concludes my prepared remarks this evening. I've often been asked how I get into talk radio. I'll talk to you about that in just a second. But first, this wonderful story, this true story. From time to time, I'm reminded of just the unexpected blessings of this country. The other day, pull up into the gas station with my late model car. I get out wearing my nice suit, pull out my credit card with a substantial limit, put it in the pump to get some premium gas. A car pulls up next to me, a 1968 maroon-colored Dodge Polara. Two guys get out. One of them looks like the Jared Lee Loughner mugshot. The other one looks like the same mugshot with maybe 30 more years of bad road on him. Tattoos everywhere. They put on $5 of regular and they rumble off. And as I'm watching them rumble off, I say, and just think, those dudes owe me reparations. This is a great country or what? The talk radio story real quickly. I was writing op-ed pieces for newspapers in Cleveland, and every now and then one would get published. So I wrote one that got published, and it was about my libertarian view of the country. The country is too large, the tax is too much, businesses are regulated too much, racism is no longer a major problem in America, and I get a phone call from a producer of a radio show, and he says, would you like to come on and talk about your article? I said, fine. Didn't know who the talk show host was. His name was Merle Paulus. He'd been in Cleveland for something like 30 years. I never listened to talk radio. I had no idea who he was. I went on. I was on for an hour. I was called every name imaginable: insensitive, cold, uncaring, Uncle Tom, bootlicking Uncle Tom, Sambo Tom, coconut, as in brown on the outside, white on the inside, Oreo, same concept, the Antichrist, and one that was designed to hurt, to wound any self-respecting black man, Republican. So I get home after I've done this thing, and the station manager was on. He said, you were fantastic. I was, oh my God, you were amazing. I was, oh. You took interesting positions, you defended them effectively, you have a sense of humor. Have you ever thought about doing talk radio? I said, no. He said, my guy is going on vacation next week. I was going to get a pro to sit in, but I'd like you to do it. Would you consider it? I said, no. He said, why? I said, I really didn't have a good time the hour I was doing it, and I don't like yelling at people. I don't like being yelled at. No, thank you. He said, are you married? At the time, I was married. He said, do me a favor, go home to your wife, talk this opportunity over with her, and I'm sure she'll convince you to do it. I said, I'll try it, but I doubt that she'll convince me. I went home to my then wife, Cindy. I told her about the opportunity. She said, what do you think? I said, well, I think of talk radio as shallow, glib, and stupid. She said, it is. You'd be good at it. Just give you some idea of what happened to that marriage. My influences are obviously my mom and my dad, and I cannot thank them enough for what they've done for me, what they've done for my two brothers and me. And my dad is as was mentioned by Sherry, my dad is a janitor. My father was born in Athens, Georgia. He does not know who his biological father is. The name Elder was the name of a man who lived with his mom the longest that he can remember. The man who lived with my grandmother was an alcoholic, a beater. My father came home when he was 13 years old from school and was making too much money, too much noise for my grandmother's then boyfriend, and she threw him out of the house and kept the boyfriend there. My father then embarked on a series of Dickensian type of jobs. Hotel, valet, shoe shine boy, he waited tables, he cooked for families, he did every imaginable job that you could possibly think of. He got a job with the railroad company. He was a Pullman porter. That was the largest private employer of blacks in those days. He was able to travel all around the country and came to California on a couple of runs and promised himself, based upon the weather and how he thought people were more friendly than the South, maybe someday he'd move out to Los Angeles. World War II started. My father joined the Marines. He was stationed on Guam shortly before they dropped the bomb. My father was a cook in the Marines. When he decided to go back to the South when he was discharged, he wanted to get a job as a short order cook. He went to a restaurant. They said, "I'm sorry, sir, you have no references." He went to another restaurant. "I'm sorry, sir, you have no references." He went to another one, was told the same thing. My father said, "Well, I'll work for free for 2 weeks, and then please give me a reference." Still wouldn't hire him. My father then went to an unemployment office. He walked through the door. The lady at the counter said, "I'm sorry, you walked through the wrong door." He went back out the hall, walked through the colored-only door, back to the very same woman. My father had just married my mother. He said, "This is BS. I'm going to California, and I'm going to send for you." My father came out to California. He went to an unemployment office. They had nothing for him. He said, "What time do you open?" They said, 8 o'clock. "What time do you close?" They said, 5:30. My father said, "I'll be there at 8 when you open. I'll be there at 5:30 when you close, but I'll sit there until you have something." He sat there for about 2.5 days. Lady called him up and said, "I have something for you. I'm not sure whether or not you want to do it." He said, "What is it?" She said, "It's a job as a janitor. You'll have to clean toilets." He said, "Of course I'll do it." My father worked at that job for 11 years, took a second full-time job with another company as a janitor. He went to night school 3 nights a week to get his GED. He cooked for a family on the weekends. I never saw a human being work that hard. My father always told me, hard work wins. You get out of life what you put into it. And before you blame somebody else for your problems, look real long and hard in the mirror and find out whether or not it's you. And no matter how good you are, how hard you work, how bright you are, bad things are going to happen. Your character will be defined by how you deal with it. My father never complained, he never whined, and he's now 95 years old. He'll be 96 in May. I was just telling Lou about him. Thank you. Lou told me that he spoke at Jack LaLanne's funeral. Jack LaLanne died at 96, Lou? Yeah. My dad will be 96 in May, never lifted a weight, salts everything. Wouldn't touch a broccoli. I want to say a quick word about the President of the United States. He's been in office now 2 years. This is the greatest lurch leftward I think this country has ever seen. What has happened to this country in the last 2 years has been an abomination. Obamacare is taking over 1/7 of the nation's economy, putting it under the command and control of the federal government. I was watching Bill Clinton speak at Davos, and it was a large room full of people, and he was kicking back, waxing eloquently about this and about that and about this and about that. And I just thought it was remarkable. Here is a man, Bill Clinton, who was impeached, something no one talks about anymore. He was found in contempt of court. No one talks about it anymore. There was a credible allegation that he had raped a woman. No one talks about that anymore. Yet George W. Bush, had he caught a flight and landed in Switzerland, might very well have been arrested. What is wrong with this picture? A judge in Florida has just ruled that Obamacare, the whole Obamacare, soup to nuts, is unconstitutional. I read the entire decision, the 76 pages long, and in the decision he issues a declaratory judgment that Obamacare is unconstitutional, a violation of the Commerce Clause. A declaratory judgment means the law is null and void until and unless the other side appeals and the appellate court grants a stay. That never happened. There has been no appeal. There has been no stay. There has been a declaratory judgment that the White House has simply ignored, and the mainstream media has allowed them to get away with it. This is unbelievable. A judge has struck down the entire law, and the White House issued a statement and said, well, it's 2 against 2, and we don't believe that the constitutional analysis of Judge Vinson's case is sound, so we're going to continue to implement Obamacare. Can you imagine if there had been some sort of ruling against one of the war on terror tactics, by George W. Bush and he simply decided to ignore it without even appealing it, what would have happened to him? He wouldn't be able to get a table at Fatburger. It's unbelievable. My mom is from the South. She was born and raised in Huntsville, Alabama. And she told me when I was 7 years old, we sat down with a book of presidents. And we looked at every president from George Washington to the incumbent president at the time, Dwight Eisenhower. We went over all of their highlights and lowlights. And she turned to me and she said, Larry, if you want it badly enough and you work hard enough, someday you could be in this book. And because my mother told me that, it never occurred to me that it could be anything other than true. This is an amazing country. It is a country where someone can go from nothing to something more readily, more quickly than any other country in all of human history. And when I hear people complaining, when I hear people whining, all I do is just think about my father. I think about my mother. I think about the obstacles that they overcame. I think about what they went through. And it is absolutely insulting for anybody in this country, male, female, old, young, black, white, to say that racism, sexism, fill in your favorite ism can hold you back in 2011 in America. It's insulting to all the people who worked hard, who slaved, who died, who marched, who sacrificed, and who bled to get us here. Thank you. He saved up his money. He was 47 years old, and he started a cafe near downtown Los Angeles. He ran that cafe until he was in his mid-80s. One day, a man walks in and tells my dad, "Did you hear what your leader just said last night on television?" My father said, "My leader?" He said, "Yeah, you know, Jesse Jackson." And my father said, "Jesse Jackson is my leader. Who's your leader?" It's a white guy. He said, "Well, I don't have one." My dad said, "Well, I'm running my own business. You're working for somebody else. But Jesse Jackson is my leader and you don't have one?" He goes, "Yeah." I mentioned that once when I was giving a speech, and I said, "Who is the Greek-American leader?" No one said anything. I said, "Who is the Polish-American leader?" No one said anything. I said, "Who is the Italian-American leader?" Somebody in the back went, "Rocky!" I mentioned my mom and my mom's attitude. As you know, she was on the show every Friday. I called her the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. And Sheriff Joe, my mother had a novel approach to what to do about the problem of illegal aliens. You might have heard her. She said we should invade Mexico, develop it, then leave it. They won't want to come up here because things will be too good. I said, "Mom, I don't see you becoming the next Secretary of State, but I'll see what I can do." One day when I was practicing law, the Iranians had taken those Americans hostage. And everyone was hand-wringing about what to do and how we should handle this. And I'm talking to a bunch of other young lawyers. And I said, "Well, I haven't spoken to my mother about it, but I know what she would do." And they said, "What?" I said, "She'd give them 48 hours and she'd bomb the hell out of them." And they said, "No, she wouldn't." I said, "Oh, yes, she would." "No, she would." "Oh, yes, she would." I was in Cleveland at the time. I said, "Watch this." I went over to the phone. I called her. I said, "Mom, the hostages." She goes, "Yeah." I said, "What would you do about it?" And she said, "Thanks, Mom." Hung up. The lawyer said, "Well, what happened? Did she say she'd give him 48 hours?" I said, "No." She said, they all said, "I told you." I said, "No, my mom's bellowing. She gave him 72 hours. We have a $3 trillion addition to the national debt just in 2 years. We have now passed a $1 trillion stimulus program that was supposed to save or create 3.5 million jobs. We have expanded TARP, which was begun under George W. Bush. We bailed out auto companies, we bailed out insurance companies. And then we passed Obamacare. The good news is the American people have seen the light. And those who voted for Obama because he thought he would bring us together have seen that he is the most divisive president at the second year since Gallup has been doing these kinds of measurements. The numbers of Democrats who love him versus the number of Republicans who despise what he's done, the gap has never been greater. And the American people are now seeing this. We're now recognizing this. The good news is that we are now beginning to rediscover the principles that made this country great. Limited government, personal responsibility. And you should be able to keep what you earn. Thank you. I want to conclude by just another story about my mom. She really hated it when she'd watch kids complain about racism, because she really experienced it. This is a woman who, when she went to a department store, had to go through the back door of the department store in Huntsville, and if the garment touched her body, she had to purchase it. Whether it fit, whether she liked it, it didn't matter, she had to buy it. My mother was telling me about this when I was in my 20s. She never wanted to tell us these stories when we were younger because she said she didn't want us to be angry. But she's telling me this story. Dad was silently eating his food as she was telling me this story. And she said, when we put a dress on, we better make sure that it fit, better make sure we could afford it, better make sure that it was the fabric that we wanted, because once it touched our skin, we had to buy it. And I said, wow, Dad, was it like that with you? And my father pointed at his head and said, hats, too. When you purchased a hat and you put it on your head, whether you liked it, whether it fit properly, once it touched your skin, you had to buy it. This is what they went through. How dare me not appreciate this country? How dare me complain about someone who said something they shouldn't have said? Are you kidding me? How insulting it is to the people that endured real stuff. So one day in high school, the teacher read a poem, and it went like this. While riding through a Baltimore so small and full of glee, I saw a young Baltimorean keep a looking straight at me. Now he was young and very small, and I was no whit bigger, and so I smiled, but he poked out his tongue and called me nigger. I saw the whole of Baltimore from May until September. Of all the things that happened there, that's all that I remember. Well, teacher was upset, class was upset, I was upset, everyone was upset. We're talking about the permanent damage to the kid's psyche, how he was scarred forever, how he would never be the same. And I went home and I said, I'm going to read this poem to my mom. I don't know what she's going to say, but whatever it is, I got a feeling it's going to be somewhat different than what the teacher said. I walked into the kitchen. She was stirring a big pot of greens. I'll never forget it. And I said, Mom, we read a poem in class. I want to get your reaction to it. She said, go ahead. I said, well, it goes like this. While riding through a Baltimore so small and full of glee, I saw a young Baltimorean keep a looking straight at me. Now, I was young and very small, and he was no whit bigger, and so I smiled. And he poked out his tongue and called me nigger. I saw the whole of Baltimore from May until September. Of all the things that happened there, that's all that I remember. She took the spoon out of the pot, wrapped it on the side, turned to me, and she said, Larry, it's too bad he let something that trivial spoil his vacation. Thank you very much for having me. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Let's not forget, during the period where this terrible loss occurred on the airwaves in Southern California, when Larry Elder was off temporarily, now he's on every day from 9 to 12, LarryElder.com, LarryOnTheLaw.com. But there was a buzz that developed, and it was starting to get pretty loud, and the buzz went like this: Larry Elder for Senate. Now you see why that buzz is there. So keep it in the back of your mind, Larry. I mean, it's a good plan B, and it would sure help us. Now, our next speaker, who's going to introduce our illustrious law enforcement guest speaker, is someone, it's a great privilege for me because I cover Hollywood, and perhaps the tiniest little minority that exists in Tinseltown, one that Charlton Heston used gay metaphors to describe as closet conservatives. And Lou Ferrigno is one of these people, a very talented person, and it's a great privilege for me, because perhaps best known for being a world champion bodybuilder and playing the Hulk. I am often mistaken for Lou Ferrigno on the beach. Now, maybe it's that green sunblock I use, I don't know, but Lou is known not only for his bodybuilding, as a very gifted actor who's has a good comedic style, and for training, obviously, and for fitness. He appeared in the documentary Pumping Iron, and there was this other guy, used to be governor, who was in that film as well, and I think he was fantastic. And Buddy, I think so too. And he's best known for his CBS television series, The Incredible Hulk. Here is the incredible Lou Ferrigno.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming tonight, for your support. Larry, that was a wonderful speech. But go easy on me, because even though I work out, I'm going to live to be 96 like your father and Jack Elaine. I still have longevity. Anyway, I'm up here tonight to talk about my favorite hero, Sheriff Joe Arpaio. What more will we say about this man? I don't know if you all realize this man has been a police officer for 30 years. He also has been involved with the head of the DEA in Phoenix, Arizona for 30 years. He has worked all over the world, Turkey, Mexico, all different countries. Not just being a sheriff, but this guy's background goes way back. I mean, this guy's done it all. And Sheriff Arpaio is the man who matches his word, that the people vote for him, he's able to give back because he's interested in what they want and he knows what they want to be given. I'll tell you something. Larry brought out good points in the speech, over the years we're dealing with racism and different issues. But now that's not a problem anymore. I think America now is losing the war against crime. And something has to be done because we still have a sovereign nation here. My grandparents came to Alabama. I was forced to learn how to speak English correctly, because I was instilled in me great work ethic. We had nothing when I was young, so did my parents. So my father became a police lieutenant with the New York Police Department. And still today, that's why I respect law enforcement. 5 years ago, I became a deputy sheriff for the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department because it's in the blood, it's about giving back, it's about our country. And it's funny, recently, I had a chance to visit Sheriff Joe, his prison, all the inmates. And it's funny that when he walked with me down, he happened to sign more autographs than I was able to sign. I'm talking about like a ratio of 3 to 1. That is because he's so well liked. My favorite part of the visit that he introduced is pink underwear. I don't know if you know why, because a lot of the inmates, when they were released from prison, they would walk away with 3 or 4 white underwear. They would steal them. But Sheriff Joe was so brilliant, he came up with the idea about pink underwear because, it stands out because it's pink. And pink to Sheriff Joe is a very calm, psychological calming color. And because he's been very successful with pink underwear, now he incorporates pink handcuffs. And I think we all should buy stock in pink underwear because that's going to be our future. And you know, what really impressed me was to form the Reserve program. I don't know if you all realize the Reserve program, you have to, they work with the posse, and they're able to work for free and work together with the deputy. Now, before I have to introduce Sheriff Arpaio, I want to state that this man has a great vision. He cares about the country and deals with the border. Because today, we're not living in a very safe place. Because all the drugs, all the weapons, the mass destruction is coming through the border. Also, we have bad drugs because it's infiltrating our young generation today. But Sheriff Arpaio is able to see that. He's one step ahead of the game because it's a wake-up call. Because all of us just sit around expecting life to be take its own course. But Sheriff Joe Arpaio knows that. He knows what it's taken. He's seen the worst of life, and he wants to do the best to protect our country. And I'm very honored, extremely honored to introduce our great American, toughest, courageous, best sheriff of the United States, one of my favorites, Sheriff Joe Arpaio.
I made him a special deputy. You didn't say that. I think I made you a captain. What are you in LA? A private? So we did have a meeting with Lou when I launched my illegal immigration posse. And Lou was there with the Steven Seagal. He's doing things with us now, and the Mission Impossible and that type of thing. So I really want to thank you for coming down. And thank you for those nice comments. Hey, Phil, thank you and your lovely wife for inviting me. It's an honor to be in this beautiful building. I go way back. I'm a senior citizen. Usually when I'm in retirement communities, I tell my age, but everybody's young around here, so I don't want to tell you my age. But I was born June 14, Flag Day. I'm not going to tell you the year. I don't care. Hey, 1932, so take your calculators out and figure out how young I am. So you do know that I was born in 1932. My mother and father came from Italy, legally. And my mother unfortunately died in childbirth because if she did not have an abortion, she would not live. So I bounced around from family to family, Italian family. And my father had some Italian grocery store, worked hard, never took a vacation. I worked in a grocery store. I think I got $2 a day for delivering olive oil and all that type of Italian food. But, you know, I joined the Army the day the Korean War broke out. And spent 3 years, became a police officer in Washington, D.C., walked a tough beat, African-American beat. And then I went to Las Vegas for a short time on a police department. I see President Nixon downstairs standing next to Elvis Presley. You see that? I locked up Elvis when I was a cop in 1957. Well, I locked him up and then unlocked him. He was going like 100 miles an hour on his motorcycle with a beautiful blonde. I was watching the blonde. I didn't know who this guy was. Took him down to the police station. I'm Elvis Presley. He was doing the Hawaii stories, and he conned me out of giving him a ticket. That's so darn good because he gave 12 Cadillacs to narcotic detectives in Colorado. I never got a Cadillac. And then I was with the Bureau of Narcotics, which is now called the DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration. We only had 300 agents around the world. And the President Nixon, you're going to give him an honorary narcotic agent badge. So we did. Of course, unfortunately, he died of an overdose, but that's unfortunate. I see Bill Hunt here. Bill ran for sheriff. The reason I mentioned Bill Hunt, because I've been in law enforcement 50 years. I've been a bureaucrat for, what, 32 years. With the police, army, federal drug enforcement. Always had a boss. But being the sheriff, isn't it great? I don't have to report to any governor, politician. I just report to the 4 million people that we know of. There's a few extra floating around in America. So, it's the greatest, best job I ever had. And I've had some interesting jobs in my other career. I love President Nixon. To me, he's one of the greatest presidents we ever had. Could be the best. And I take that, I say that because, you know, my whole life was fighting the international drug traffic in the hills of Turkey for 4 years, Mexico, South America. I've lived everywhere fighting that drug traffic. President Nixon said, we're going to make this a top priority, the top priority of the government to stop this international drug traffic. And he did. He did. I remember G. Gordon Liddy and I very seldom talk about that, but since I'm in his building, President Nixon, I'm going to talk about it. Remember G. Gordon Liddy? He's got his talk show. By the way, I don't want to brag when you're talking about talk shows. You open the door. They did a survey, some company, a poll. 18,000, they went to all the talk shows and some TV and said, who would you like on your show? Or if you had that person, did you like him? Who's your top? 500 responded. What do you think the sheriff came out? And I'm just a little old sheriff from Maricopa County. No, Rush Limbaugh came out number 1. I couldn't beat him. Glenn Beck, number 2. Couldn't beat him. Then the lady she's in Minnesota, she's, what's it, Backman or whatever. She got 3. Palin got 4. I came out number 5. If you want me on your talk show, I'll be glad to go on. So, you know, they call me a publicity hound. That's what they call the media. I've been on 5,000 talk shows overseas. They keep coming. I had Belgium last week, and they come every week to see me. And I talk to the media. Should I be afraid to talk to the media? But they call me a publicity hound. I remember when I was on 60 Minutes, the guy says, you're a publicity hound. I said, you call me, I don't call you. Why do you call me a publicity hound? Also, I don't run a CIA operation. I don't run a secret operation. I took you into the jail. You saw all the inmates. I take the media every day. They can go in there. I have nothing to hide. Let them go in there. Now, I got the Department of Justice investigating me. They're suing me. And I'm an ex-Fed. And they're going after me. For what? I'm just doing my job. I took an oath of office. Oath of office to enforce all the laws. That includes illegal immigration, whatever. And I'm the bad guy. It's sad that the government that I worked for 32 years is going after this sheriff because they don't like me locking up illegal aliens. I don't call them undocumented. I call them illegal aliens. I don't get into my personal life very seldom. When I'm here, I don't have to worry about the media in Arizona. Yeah, don't push this all over where these guys are. I don't know. Look like they're television guys. I don't know if they have high definition. I hope they do. to talk about it. I don't have to defend myself. Every day in front of my office, I have demonstrators. 2.5 years they've been there. From 12 to 1 o'clock. They don't work 1 minute after 12 demonstrating against it. That's because Acorn was paying their overtime, probably. Every day in front of my building. Think of that. They come out, this Reverend Sharpton, I love this guy. He came down last year to demand I resign. Who's this guy from New York telling me to resign? I love the guy. I want to send him a first-class ticket to come back. He led 10,000 demonstrators against me. But I met him in my office, privately. Of course, I was a little blinded with all his jewelry and all that. So, I love the guy. I raised $50,000 the day he arrived. You know, I'm a little disappointed around here. Everywhere I go, I could demonstrate. We have 1 or 2 here. There's a high price of gas around here. They can't afford to take a bus. I was in San Diego last week. I talked to 1,000. Some lawyer asked me to talk. I don't know why I did it, but I did. Because I knew the demonstrators were going to be there in front of the Marriott. I had 200 demonstrators there. I go to Nashville, New Hampshire to talk to 1,000 Republicans. They were there. Everywhere I go, there's demonstrators. Where are they today? Oh, my guys, oh, it's dangerous. You shouldn't talk to them. They're going to shoot you. Yeah, I get a lot of threats from Mexico. What's this cartel? When I was an agent in Chicago, now I can call it what it was. You see, you're not supposed to say mafia, because they went to the Attorney General years ago. We do not like the name mafia. It's organized crime. Or crime syndicate. Or the outfit. Now it's cartel. What is that, a French name? I never heard the word cartel. Cartel. What was that? And then this other word, I had to look it up in the dictionary. I don't have all these degrees like you do, Costa. But what's this transparency? Some janitor at the White House must have said transparent, and the president says, and everybody's saying transparency. You notice that? They always come up with buzzwords. More boots on the ground at the border. Let me get back to President Nixon. G. Gordon Liddy and I ran an operation called Intercept, 1969. President Nixon made it, as I said, top priority. He's fed up with the border, with all the drugs coming across. We're going to close the border for 2 weeks. We had thousands of federal officers at the border. And G. Gordon Liddy, remember him? He's got his talk show. Good friend of mine. And we ran that operation. We got 1 marijuana cigarette. Search cars all the way back up to Mexico City. They hated us. Mexico hated us. But it worked. Now, immediately it worked, but the long range it worked. Just by chance, I took over Mexico City as the regional director. They hated us. So I used to have the Attorney General over the House of Mexico, and he liked blueberry pie, so my wife cooked the blueberry pie. A few shots of whiskey. I got more done with blueberry pie, believe me, and whiskey than the big stick. Now, in those days when I was in Turkey, I was the only federal agent in Turkey, working undercover in the Middle East and all that. One guy, me. And then in Mexico, we were operational. Our agents worked undercover, everything, just like any cop overseas. Then they stopped that. Stopped it. But the governments agreed for us to do that. No, so my idea how to stop the border since I only spent 14 years there. Which, by the way, I wonder why the White House doesn't call me, or U.S. senators, or anybody. Why don't they call me to pick my brain, since I spent 14 years as a top federal official on Texas, Arizona, Mexico, 3 different assignments, not all at once. Why don't they ask me? They don't ask me. The media won't even ask me what I would do if I was the president. But I know how to stop the problem. And I'll give it to you since you're such a great crowd and we're in a great building. I know he's looking up, watching me. So, you know how you do it? Let's become operational again. Let's take that border patrol and put them across the border bilaterally with the Mexican government's agreement. And we'll clean up that border in a month. Now, they're going to say the border patrol is too dangerous for them. Okay, let's send the army there now. Let's send the army. So we have armies in Afghanistan, Iraq. I think they're there for a little terrorism problem too, I believe. Isn't there a possibility of terrorists crossing the 2,000-mile Mexican-U.S. border? You don't even have to give the excuse of drugs and illegal immigration. Just tell the American people we're worried about terrorism. That's all. And send the army over there working with their army. But that would never happen. You know that. Now, if we had another President Nixon, I guarantee you that would happen. Today. What's going on across our country and the world. Now, you mentioned this pink underwear. Lou, you got it all. Now, wait a minute. So, since I'm elected, and I can't be fired, do you really think if I was a chief of police, had to report to some city council or county, or, you know, all that I would be talking to you like I'm talking to you now? I would have been fired 18 years ago. So since I'm elected, hey, I do what I feel is right and do it right away. I don't worry about all these lawyers. If I wanted to do this and I was appointed, I'd have to go and form a citizens committee to see if the pink is going to make them crazy. I'd have to get a lawyer, they'd have to study it, he could be sued. Don't put him in pink. I did it in 24 hours just to get the color to change it from white to pink. And when you said they don't like it, I'll tell you one thing, they don't like it in Maricopa County, but they may like it in San Francisco in California. I was in the Army. I joined the Army. I lived in tents. I love the smell. I guess you military people, don't you like the smell of the canvas? It's a nice smell. So when I ran for sheriff, I'm going to put tents up. Put the inmates in tents. Not because we had a jail overcrowding problem, which we did, but the sheriff that I beat never told me they had a jail overcrowding. I did it. He said, to build a hotel, people will check in. I wanted more people to come to me. So all these politicians, you know, they wouldn't help me. I needed some help to find Korean War tents. I didn't want to pay for it. So I went to New Mexico. I had to go to New Mexico to find the tents. I guess you know what a midnight requisition is. So we got 70 tents, brought them back to Phoenix. Where do you build a jail? They're going to pay for the land. So we found some land already owned by the government, the county. Put the tents up there. Next to the dump. And the waste disposal plant, but it doesn't bother me. And when the breeze comes, then we got the porta-johns in another part. So when the wind comes, you get smells from all all different directions. Let me tell you something. The reason I survived, because I can prove everything I tell you. The politicians go crazy in the media. They just can't get me because I can prove what I'm telling you. So the tents, great program. They're still there. Over 500,000 people have come to the tents. Over 500,000. I have other jails too. I've had 4 presidential candidates visit me in the tents. Really? Remember Senator Dole? What did he do? Start selling Viagra? I saw things. Phil Graham in Texas. He ran. He visited me. Stood next to me. Governor Wilson, California. Remember, he was running for president. He visited me. McCain, he visited me. They all lose. Nobody wins. So I tried to get Hillary here 3 years ago. Oh no. Oh wait, she flying over. There. Great program. I remember when I took office, they were showing porno, all these to the inmates. So what is this? So I wiped it out. Naturally, I was sued. When I get sued, when I go to the toilet, it looks like everybody's sued. I won that case, Supreme Court, on the magazine. And they were renting movies, R-rated movies to show the prisoner. Why would you show murderers murder? I wiped out all the movies except 3. I play games with the inmates. I had the Lassie Come Home, Old Yeller, and Donald Duck. They didn't like it, wiped out all the movies. I could not wipe out TV because the judge many years ago said you have to show them TV. He never said what to show. So he pumped in cable, paid by the inmates, not taxpayers. So I became the TV guy. Showed them 3. What is it? C-SPAN. They have to watch all these politicians. You know what C-SPAN is? And I show them the Weather Channel. Last year it was 140 degrees. Actually, last week it was like 17. They don't have heaters or air conditioning. Give them blankets. They survive, no problem. And then I show them the Food Channel. Our meals went up a little. It went from 14 cents a meal to 18. And we give them 2 meals. That's like 50 cents a day to feed the inmates. We put out about 35,000 meals. I used to come to California to pick the fruits and vegetables. Not pick them. The farmers used to give us the money. Not the money, the food. And we would transport the food back to Phoenix and give it to the inmates. Of course, it's hard coming here now because all my trucks, I have big banners. If you know any illegal immigrant, call Sheriff Joe's hotline. I can't come to California and get fruits and vegetables with that truck. I'll tell you right now. But we do okay with the illegal immigration. We're doing great, my office is. I think 45,000 people we have investigated, arrested, on the streets, and in the jail. That's 1/4 of the whole country. I was a Terminator thanking me, because over 2,500 smugglers from the border we caught in our county. A lot of them were going to California. So why doesn't the governor say, thanks, Sheriff, you're putting them in jail? They're probably mad at me. You know, because we're locking them up. You mentioned something that just struck me about your mom and dad, the hard work. You know what burns me up? And I'm not going to say who the U.S. Republican senators are, but you know what burns me up? When they say we have to hire illegals because no American will do the job. That's the biggest insult in our world. You know that? Biggest insult to say we can't find our own workers in the United States. We have to import them illegally. That's not right. That's not true. And I think the president should send me an award instead of investigating me. I'll tell you why. I'm from Massachusetts. We had this, remember the sergeant, Cambridge, Mass, arrested the African-American professor. Remember that? And the president stuck his nose into law enforcement. He took so much heat. What did he do? He invited these two people to the White House and they had beer. They had beer. Now, since I'm accused of racial profiling, why doesn't he invite me to the White House? Since I'm Italian, we'll have a little wine. And then I'm from Springfield, Mass. That's where basketball was invented. He likes to play basketball. I'll take him on. I guarantee and I'll beat him. At my age, I'll still beat him. You know, what is this? Horse, you make one, I make one. That's what he should do. Why send the Justice Department after him? They're out there in Phoenix right now. They've been interviewing my people. 2 years they've been doing it. So we do go into workplaces. 41 we've hit. McDonald's hit that twice. You got a Sizzler steakhouse around here, hit that one. You know, I can't go to McDonald's, I can't go to the steakhouse, I can't go to the Mexican restaurant, I can't go anywhere. I wish you'd tell me about it. Phil, you got a good Mexican restaurant here where nobody knows me and I can't go anywhere. That's my fault with a high profile, you know, everywhere I go people know me, but that's okay. And then we do the crime suppression. They really don't like that. Really. All these politicians, mayors, they don't like me going into Phoenix. I'm the sheriff of the county. The last I heard, Phoenix happens to be in the county. That's why I go everywhere. No one's going to tell me I can't go into the city. I could come to Orange County. I'll send my undercover posse here, just like Mayor Blueberry. And the mayor of New York came to Phoenix to the guns place, had a secret police buying a gun, sticking his nose in our business. I blasted him on my Twitter. We got the Mexican president blasting Arizona. You know. Why don't they worry about their own problems that they have in New York and Mexico? Why stick your nose in Arizona? By the way, how much time I got, Phil? If I was in a retirement community, you guys would have to leave. What? Oh, you are? Okay, let me just, I talked about the immigration and the tents and the chain gang. You know, I'm the only one in the history of the world that put females on the chain gang. I did that 10 years ago. Really? I'm the equal opportunity incarcerator. I have them burying the deceased every Thursday at the cemetery. The females and the males, they take their hats off, they pray, nobody else has. They're this county cemetery where nobody cares. So I have the chain gang doing. When I get mad at the governor and the mayor, I put the chain gang right in front of their office. Anyway, any questions? Is this a lecture? I've never lectured in my life.
You know, we can hear Sheriff Joe all night, can't we? Yes, sir. www.sheriffjoe.com. James, did you want to come back up here? We're going to open it. Larry, come on up. We're going to open this. We have some time for questions and answers. We got a roaming microphone out there. Let's get these guys back up here. Larry, come on up. I guess I'll hand it over to the MC. Sorry.
That's just what I was going to say. We have Oprah. Is that you? No, we have someone with a microphone. If you have any questions, we only have about 16 minutes or so. So pithy questions, short. Anybody?
This gentleman, which people do not realize, is an animal rights gentleman, and I want him to speak about what he's been doing for the wonderful work with the animals and his prisoners.
I'll just do it briefly. This convention summarizes. You saw the animals behind bars. So we had a big operation. They were killing cats, drinking their blood. Nobody would do anything. We went down there, locked up the people that did it, but I needed a place to put the animals that had been abused. So we took all the inmates out of one of our jails, and threw them in a tent. So I had a jail with 200 cells. So we just put the dogs, we don't double bunk dogs, we double bunk inmates. So every dog has its own cell. We have a cat section, and we have the horses in the tent. So anybody that abuses animals, directly to jail. I don't give them a ticket, directly to jail. And the only reason I took each, because it was the only air-conditioned jail we had at the time. And why do you put inmates in hot tents or other jails and you put the dogs in air conditioning? You're crazy. And also I said it costs more to feed the dogs than the inmates. It's true. It's $1 a day to feed the dogs. It's what, 50 cents to feed the inmates. So that's my animal cruelty program. I have 5 detectives for that, and we lock up anybody. I don't care who they are. I locked up a couple of controversial people. They go directly to jail with their green bologna sandwich, but then they're out. That's a dog thing.
Questions? Please raise your hand. Okay.
I have a question. I am fed up with this. We can't execute anybody in California. We can't kill them because we can't hurt them. You know, it doesn't make any sense. Secondly, when you're stopped at any type of a stop on your moving violation, first thing they ask you, I want to see your license, your registration, and your insurance. As an American, I don't mind showing that information, but it really ticks me off that anybody else is in here illegally, they don't have to do anything. We just have to appease them, make them happy. I don't have a problem with anybody coming to this country to get a job and to work hard, but I am fed up with them come over here with their entitlements and thinking that they have to just a handout and take everything from us. It's not the American way. We're Americans. We're Americans.
It doesn't hurt them when you execute them. It's true. It hurts the animals more when you... No, it doesn't hurt them. I'm just trying to tell you.
Questions?
Right here. Right here.
Where's our...
right here.
Okay.
Cheryl, have you been in contact with Sarah Palin in any way and what it is?
Have I been in contact with Sarah Palin? Well, I was at Vegas doing the Tea Party 2000. She was in Reno the night before with only 1,000, but that's okay. Vegas, but I saw her a couple of months ago. I spent about 20 minutes alone with her, and I gave her in my book. And the problem is, I put it on my Twitter, and the press forgot to say that I gave her the pink underwear because that's what the inmates wear. They thought I just gave her pink underwear. My wife, I've been married 53 years. She said, "What are you giving her pink underwear?" No, this is the inmates' pink underwear. So I took a little heat on that. I take a lot of heat.
Joe, you can't find any demonstrators here in Orange County because we're all in here in support of you.
Wait a minute, they support me in many places, but they still get demonstrators. And I'm very sad that we don't have any demonstrators. It's true. 5 waiting outside for you. I'm not going, wait a minute, I'm not going to listen to TV cameras are out there. I'm not going off TV, so forget. Tell them to go back home.
Any other questions? Right here. This is a question for Larry. I mentioned Larry. If President Obama came into Maricopa County, could Sheriff Joe arrest him and put him in pink pants for contempt of court?
Yeah, it is a law before the legislature right now. It says any federal agent or agency that comes into Maricopa County has to sign in with the sheriff. Well, that's not a bad idea. The sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer, but you know that's never going to pass. First of all, I don't have enough room to lock up all the federal agents. They're trying to lock me up, and I'm going to, no, but there is a law right now at the legislature in Arizona for that. It's never going to go anywhere. But I like it because it does show that the sheriff is elected. You always have to put one law enforcement officer elected, so you decide what to do with that person. You decide. Of course, you made a bad decision when you didn't put Bill Hunt in there, but that's
Well, if Switzerland can arrest President Bush, I think it would be difficult to arrest Obama for contempt of court, but I'm sure that Sheriff Joe probably has some people on top of that.
Do you have a size for Michelle Obama? She has those biceps, right, Lou? She has. Any other questions? How are we doing? Okay, can we have the Oprah mic over here?
Yeah, I would like the opinion of the sheriff. We've got the technology with E-Verify, and it seems to be that if the political will is there, and employment is a big problem where we can locate people, I would like to know his opinion how we could really use this to effectively curtail a lot of the illegal immigration. Thank you.
This is the employer sanction law that was passed by the legislature, that we're the only ones enforcing it. But it's very tough, even with E-Verify. We still go into workplaces and we lock people here illegally, hired by the employer. Hard to connect them, but we do arrest those that are working, and the majority have false identification, your social security. And you know what? We're doing our job. We're getting rid of these people with false ID. They happen to be illegal, and I'm still the bad guy. No one says thank you, Sheriff, for locking these people up with false identification. If they're here illegally, I'm the bad guy for taking the people out of the workplace and splitting up the families. You separate all the families, you separate the kids. Then if you're going to do that, then let's talk about everybody in jail that's been separated from their families for any type of crime. But why just pin it to illegal immigration? That sounds right.
Sheriff Joe or Mr. Elder, do you think NAFTA has anything to do with the reason why the federal government doesn't crack down on illegal immigration coming across the border?
I don't think NAFTA has anything to do with it. I think it has to do with everything Sheriff Joe talked about. Both politicians, both parties are benefiting. The refusal to do it. Republicans are afraid of being branded as being racist. You saw what happened with Meg Whitman when she fired her illegal alien maid. It was immediately turned into an insensitive kinds of thing. Democrats are currying favor. You heard one of the officials with SEIU say that if we grant amnesty, we're going to get 12 million new voters, 8 million of which will vote for the Democratic Party. So both parties have a vested interest in keeping the status quo. I don't think NAFTA has had anything to do with it.
Hi, Sheriff Joe. I brought you a resume, and I want to help work for you and help you. So I want to give this to you. So to do something
I'd like to ask you, are you from Chicago? I lived everywhere. I can't even ask anybody anymore. I'd be racial profiling. Where are you from? So I'm very sensitive. I can't even do that anymore. You know that?
It's tough.
I would never ask you where you're from.
Better not. I know people. I got Sharpton on speed dial.
Sheriff Joe, are there many other counties that have followed your lead in enforcing the federal immigration laws?
Well, I don't want to talk about other counties or sheriffs or police chiefs. I will tell you we're the only ones enforcing 2 state laws, the human smuggling and the employer sanction, but I'm not going to criticize them. Hey, you guys here, I don't know who your sheriff, you have a sheriff here. Yeah, but how come the sheriff doesn't call me? So thank you for coming into Orange County. I'd help out. I got my guy, he's one of mine, he can help, right? Lou? No, I don't know. I don't care what quite frankly, I'm the sheriff of Maricopa County. I worry about the people that I serve. And I just happen to be very vocal with all these talk shows. I just want to get out and spread the message. So when you move to Phoenix from Orange County, you'll know if you violate the law, you're going to jail and you're wearing pink underwear. And that's what I do. I send a message across the nation.
We have time for 2 more questions. Okay, we have one there and then one more, and that's it.
This is a question for Larry. Elder over here, Larry. Do you know if there's any legal justification for a mayor to just declare his city a sanctuary city?
No, there isn't.
So what can residents do? A recall against their mayor? Or what, I mean, what recourse does a resident have?
Vote him out.
Question. Hold on, we do have a new law called the 1070 in appeal. We've been doing it anyway, I don't care about that. Good law, but there is one part of the new law, if you have a sanctuary city, you have the police chief or mayor say to the cops, you can't do that, then any citizen can sue the police department, the mayor, or what have you, take it to court. So that's there, but it's not going to happen. So that 1070 is not finalized. It's an appeal, probably go up to the Supreme Court. But you know, I don't need it. I had 100 deputies trained by Homeland Security. 100 deputies under the other administration. The new administration took away all my deputies' certification to enforce the federal law. It doesn't matter. We're still doing it. And we have to write all the Mickey Mouse federal reports, so we're still doing the same thing.
Okay, this gentleman will be the last question of the evening.
This is for Larry. Do you think now Maxine Waters will come on your show?
I've been trying to get Maxine Waters on my show for now 17 years. And she won't come on. Gloria Allred, to give her some credit, I was talking to her about how I couldn't get Maxine Waters on. At the time, Gloria had a show on KBC. And Gloria had her on, and right before they were ending the conversation, Gloria said, well, before you leave, my colleague here at KBC, Larry Elder, is always complaining that you won't come on his show. Can you tell me why you won't come on his show? And she said, you know, I just don't go on those shows where they have those entertainers. You, Gloria, you are a journalist. I'll go on your show. If Gloria Allred is a journalist, I'm Peter the Great.
On that note, let's have one more round of applause for these 2 gentlemen. They can take it on the road. And on behalf of the Liberatore election series, thank you all for coming. And what we always say, God bless all of you, and God bless America.